This hearing of the Committee on Foreign Affairs will come to order. Today we are privileged to hear from the Secretary of State, John Kerry. Of course, Senator Kerry is from Massachusetts, and our committee mourns those lost in the terrorist attack at the Boston Marathon. Our hearts go out to the victims and to the family members who have lost loved ones. Secretary Kerry comes to testify on his department's budget request, and needless to say, given Washington's chronic budget deficit, wasteful spending is intolerable, but even good programs must be subject to prioritization. We can't do everything. And along those lines, it is inexcusable that the State Department has been operating for 4+ years without a presidentially nominated, Senate-confirmed Inspector General. This committee is committed to its responsibility for overseeing the spending and other operations in the State Department, and that is a bipartisan commitment I am pleased to join Mr. Engel in carrying out. The threats facing our nation, unfortunately, are mounting. Iran, North Korea, and Syria are just the ones that we read about in the headlines. The terrorist threat is unfortunately constant, with al-Qaeda franchises continuing to grow. Mr. Secretary, our plate is full, and we look forward to working with you to advance our nation's interests. Regarding Iran, we can't be moving fast enough to increase the economic pressure on the Iranian revolutionary regime there. The ranking member and I have introduced legislation to do just that. I hope the administration would come to see the need to send nothing but the strongest signal that Iran's drive to develop nuclear weapons will be stopped. Greater economic pressure must be part of that message. The current policy is simply not working. Likewise with North Korea, we need to be imposing crippling financial sanctions on this increasingly belligerent regime. In 2005, the Treasury Department was allowed to counter North Korea's illicit activities. It countered those activities because it was discovered that North Korea was counterfeiting U.S. $100 bills and drug running, and was involved in weapons sales. And frankly, that tactic dramatically curtailed North Korea's access to the foreign currency that regime needed for its nuclear and missile programs. Those programs increasingly threaten us. We must get back to that policy. A robust human rights policy is especially critical in the case of North Korea. The Kim regime will never be at peace with its democratic neighbors or us so long as it is at war with its own people, including running a brutal labor camp system, described as a concentration camp for those few who have come out of that system. Promoting human rights here is in keeping with American values, but also presents a critical tactical tool for dealing with the regime. And sadly, it is clear that the U.S. international broadcasting, essential in promoting human rights, is in disarray. Secretary Clinton said so much when she last appeared before the committee. Another challenge facing us, Mr. Secretary, is seeing a successful transition in Afghanistan. The consequences of failure would be great. Our struggle against terrorism would be set back significantly. We appreciate the risks that the men and women of the State Department take, and I want to express my condolences to the family of Ann Smedinghoff, recently killed in Afghanistan along with 3 other Americans. This committee and several others have been examining the events of Benghazi. We understand that the State Department has implemented many of the reforms recommended by the Accountability Review Board in order to better protect the Department's employees. That's good, since the Board found, quote, systemic failures in leadership and management deficiencies at senior levels under the Secretary's predecessor. But the committee remains concerned about the Review Board's process. We have outstanding requests for information from your Department, Mr. Secretary, that must be answered. These include why the 4 State Department employees the Board singled out for poor performance are still on the payroll. 7 months after Benghazi, the terrorists are still alive and free. Mr. Secretary, there are great challenges for our nation, too many challenges. The difficulty of prioritizing is compounded by our fiscal crunch. Through it all, though, I look forward to working together to ensure that America maintains its traditionally positive and essential role in the world. And I will now turn to our ranking member, Mr. Engel from New York, for his statement.